Greetings from Luxor. Today we're going back to Karnak, the world's largest ancient temple complex. Let's go! Previously, I showed you the main temple of Amenhotep I. You can find the link below. But the entire Karnak complex comprises a large number of temples and shrines. The precinct of Amun only includes more than 20 shrines and temples. Today I'll show you some of the Karnak's highlights and I'll tell you more about their history. Just before the actual entrance to the temple complex, in front of the first pylon, stands a small chapel of Hakoris. Hakor was a pharaoh during the late period, the 29th dynasty in the 4th century BCE. His chapel measures 10 by 18 meters and is 5.5 meters high. It was yet another shrine for the bark of Amenhotep, employed during processions heading outside of Karnak. It allowed priests not only to rest, but also to change the direction without rotating the holy shrine, so as to carry it safely on the boat on the quay or back to the main sanctuary. Already here, at the very beginning of this sacred place, on the ramp of the ancient quay, we can see these characteristic oval grooves, normally scratched off of the walls or statues. Going further inside, we're going to see a great deal of these. And no matter how hard the priests tried to protect the sacred walls and images, throughout all Egypt we've encountered this pious vandalism. These practices were taking place up until the Roman era. The holy shrines or sacred barks with the Theban triad were transported during the holiest of festivals, for example during the Opet festival, which was organized annually and celebrated the sacred marriage of Amun and Mut, resulting in the proper transmission of royal ka and thus ensuring the maintenance of kingship. The bark of Amun was carried by 30 priests and was supported on 5 wooden poles. Just imagine how huge it must have been. This most important shrine was accompanied by barks of Mut and Khonsu, each held by 18 priests. Who were these companions of Amun-Ra? Khonsu, god of the moon and god of the time, creator of living creatures. In the Old Kingdom presented as a violent deity, devouring other gods called Khonsu, the bloodthirsty one. But in the New Kingdom he was a part of a Theban triad with Amun-Ra, father, and mother goddess Mut, and was transformed into a god of love, protector of humanity, watching us during his nocturnal journey through the sky. The Temple of Khonsu, 70 meters long and 27 meters wide, was constructed during the times of Ramesses III and his son Ramesses IV, hence its resemblance to my favorite temple in Medinet Habu. You've got to admit it really looks like its smaller version. This wonderfully preserved pylon, however, probably wasn't finished until the 11th century BCE, during the reign of Herihor, high priest of Amun-Ra, one of the most powerful people during the New Kingdom collapse, actual ruler of Upper Egypt. There's an evidence that during the Ptolemaic times there was a mysterious cult of baboons, the reincarnation of Khonsu. The sacred apes were kept in the temple premises. The hypostyle hall was built by Ramesses XI and was decorated by Herihor. Under the Ptolemies and Romans, many temples, including this one, were modified and renovated. Right here we can clearly see how the Greco-Roman reliefs on the right contrast with those of the New Kingdom. Khonsu was usually presented as a mummified young man with a side look and a lunar disc above his head. During the day, he took the form of a child. At night, he changed into an old man. You can see him in my previous episodes, especially those about the New Kingdom tombs, as his image was almost everywhere at that time. Some of the stone blocks found in the temple were probably taken from the mortuary temple of Amenhotep III on the West Bank. It's actually not so surprising, as Ramesses III had already done that during the construction of Medinet Habu temple. Taharqa, pharaoh of the 25th dynasty, in front of the temple's pylon, added a porch including 20 papyrus columns, but unfortunately it hasn't survived. The monumental entrance gate to the Temple of Khonsu. It was initially presumed that Ptolemy III was responsible for its construction, however he most likely only finished or restored it. Three bottom registers display cartouches of Amenhotep I, Herihor's successor. From the fourth register up, however, the name of Alexander the Great appears instead. Under the Persian rule, Karnak and its structures were declining, but Alexander and his successors, the Ptolemies, took on restoration. These, after all, enormously important religious sites, making Egyptians, already enthusiastic about their rule, even more content. We're going back to the Amun's precinct to explore one of the oldest structures in Karnak, the Akhmenu. Akhmenu, translated to the most glorious of monuments or monument to living spirit, is commonly known as the Festival Hall of Thutmose III, built in the 15th century BCE. It's located just right outside the enclosure of a huge early 18th dynasty temple complex, the Palace of Maat, which among others included the Sanctum Sanctorum, housing the bark of Amun-Ra. It's also included in my previous episode from Karnak. Isn't this temple a bit like the Temple of Hatshepsut in Deir el-Bahri from my last episode? Its style seems to be very lookalike, and after all, Thutmose III was Hatshepsut's successor. He must have seen the projects and construction of her masterpiece. The festival hall was finished in the 30th year of Thutmose III's reign. The columns, 32 exactly, were originally painted red, and according to some sources, they were to resemble tent poles to make the structure mirror a military tent used by Thutmose III during his countless campaigns. Thutmose III was one of the greatest builders in Karnak. Besides the Palace of Maat and Akhmenu, he commissioned constructions of the sacred Lake of Amun, huge obelisks, and a few chapels, and 3 pylons. We're about to see one of them soon. During the 22 years long reign of Hatshepsut, Thutmose III was mastering the art of war. Thus, he ascended to the throne as experienced general. It seems that Hatshepsut didn't pay closer attention to the expansion of the Mitanni kingdom in Assyria. Her, let's call it, negligence in foreign affairs might have led in about 1457 BCE to a rebellion of a coalition of Canaanite states, Egyptian vassals. It was stirred by the Mitanni kingdom and led by the king of Kadesh. All enemies were defeated by Thutmose III at the Battle of Megiddo, the first battle ever recorded in the slightest detail. This encounter began a series of preventive campaigns against Canaanites, Syrians, and Mitannis in the following years. Thutmose III did over a dozen battles, all victorious. He actually never lost any battle. He also improved Egyptian military forces. The army of chariots and royal flotilla allowed him to conduct swift campaigns in Syria-Palestine. This vigorous pharaoh expanded the Egyptian empire on a scale never seen before. Now we can see the remains of the hidden sanctuary inside the Akhmenu, known as the Botanical Garden. The festival hall had a lot of small chambers, one of them, Chamber of Ancestors, depicted on its walls 61 predecessors of Thutmose III. The oldest pharaohs on the list were from the 4th dynasty, and obviously Hatshepsut wasn't included. The eastern temple of Ramesses II, built in the 13th century BCE, measured 32 by 25.5 meters. It occupied the eastern side of the Amun temple complex and was known as the Temple of Amun-Ra who hears prayers. Nevertheless, it wasn't the first shrine at this exact spot. Most likely, Thutmose III had built his temple here, but Ramesses disassembled it and reused the materials. This sacred edifice was probably accessible for the common Egyptians, allowing them to leave here offerings for Amun-Ra. A porch, monumental and columned, was founded here naturally by Taharqa in the 7th century BCE. Taharqa was a Nubian pharaoh who commissioned these kinds of additions at a few spots in Karnak. You could see his gigantic columns on the first courtyard in my previous Karnak episode. Let's take a look now at a few southern pylons. The 8th pylon of Hatshepsut was built in the 15th century BCE on the processional route. Its southern entrance is flanked by statues of Thutmose II, Amenhotep I, and Amenhotep II. As you can see, the southern side of the pylon is currently under renovation, and filming is prohibited. All original decorations referring to the female pharaoh Hatshepsut were, of course, erased or replaced by Thutmose III. The side relief shows Amenhotep II in front of Amun-Ra. From a distance, we can see right now the gigantic 9th pylon. It was built by Horemheb in the 14th century BCE, but it's in a really bad state of preservation. The 7th pylon of Thutmose III. It depicts the pharaoh wearing the red crown, a dashret, and smiting the enemies with a club. We can find here a record of 119 Palestinian settlements conquered during his early campaigns. On the right, we see remains of his huge statues made of red granite. Thutmose raised his pylon between the Hatshepsut I and the southern entrance to the festival court. Court of the Cachet. In 1903, a French Egyptologist, Georges Lagrange, discovered here 20,000 statues and figurines, which were probably votive offerings from pilgrims. It was the largest archaeological discovery in Karnak. Almost the entire southern section in the precinct of Amun is under renovation. Here and there, work is in full swing, so you'd better watch out.
As you see, another pieces of the puzzle, waiting to be assembled.
I'm heading to one of the three main sanctuaries in Karnak, the precinct of Mut. Less visited, it's located only 10 minutes south on foot from the Temple of Khonsu. Mut was a mysterious goddess of heaven, wife of Amenhotep I, mother of all creation, protectress of pharaohs, presented as a female pharaoh with a vulture crown and a pshent crown of Upper and Lower Egypt. Mut appears in the Middle Kingdom, which is relatively late. At the beginning of the New Kingdom, however, she suddenly replaced Amunet, wife of Amun, and adopted their son Khonsu, joining the Theban triad and becoming the Queen of the Gods. There have survived reliefs depicting priestesses of Mut. As a matter of fact, the cult of Mut was the only one in Egypt run exclusively by women. Pharaoh's wife served as the chief priestess of Mut, and when a female became a pharaoh, then the title was given to her daughter. By the way, Hatshepsut was a faithful follower of Mut. She identified herself with the mother goddess and popularized her cult. Amenhotep III was believed to have been a founder of Mut's temple, but according to the most recent discoveries, the sanctuary might even date back to the beginning of the New Kingdom period. The images of Sekhmet are everywhere. All statues are made of diorite or black granite. Many of them have been taken away from Egypt. Dozens are in Egyptian museums, and still the place features so many of them. Only in the London Museum there are 30 statues. Presumably the temple initially housed more than 500 figures of the lioness goddess. The theology of Mut and her cult might have originated from northern Egypt. Some scholars suggest the powerful Sekhmet priests from Memphis during the Hyksos rule in Lower Egypt might have allied with Theban rulers and combined the cult of their goddess with the 17th dynasty cult of Amun. Perhaps Sekhmet priests formed a pact with the Theban rulers and supported them in reunification of Egypt, which resulted in the creation of a new cult of Mut. It's time to leave Karnak. Of course, there's much more to explore, but we'll be back here soon. An outstanding granodiorite statue of Amenhotep III bids us farewell. Thanks for watching. To stay tuned, please tap the subscribe button and help my channel grow by liking, commenting and sharing my content with your friends. Who knows, perhaps you'll also enjoy my previous episodes from Egypt, Turkey and Greece. And see you on another ancient site.